So there you are talking with your friend, and he is telling you a story. And in the middle of this story, you realize that he is making a little bit of a mistake that if he were to fix, he could make his life that much better. So you're thinking to yourself, he's not actually asking for advice, but should you still give him some? Even though he seems perfectly happy with the way things are going. But if you were to just fix this tiny little thing, his life would be so much better. I need to give him this advice. But should you? Hey guys, I'm Shoma, and in this channel, I want to challenge the way you think. And in this video, I want to talk all about giving advice, when to give advice, and more importantly, should you even attempt to give advice? So starting right off, there are two types of advice. There's solicited advice and then unsolicited advice. We're not going to worry about solicited advice because if someone is asking for advice, just give them advice. Honestly, it's a fairly straightforward thing. But it becomes a little more complicated when we're talking about unsolicited advice or advice that someone isn't directly asking for. So what is the problem with giving unsolicited advice? Well, the main problem is that most people, when they give advice, they're not actually doing it to benefit the person, they're really doing it out of ego. They're doing it out of a need to be validated because, now someone's taking your advice, so therefore you must be important, or some other reason that is similar to that. They're doing it out of a very selfish reason rather than a very selfless reason. They're coming from a state of scarcity out of, I need you to take this advice because that'll make me feel better, versus here's some advice. If you choose to take it, that's great. If you don't, that's great too. It's not gonna affect me in any way. You go ahead, you take it, and you do whatever you want with it. And that advice, if given the second way, is actually a lot more heated than the first way because people subconsciously realize this, because it comes from a state of almost fear, a state of, I need you to take my advice because if you don't take my advice, well, then how am I going to be worth anything? Like, I need to be worth something, so please take my advice. And that is the big reason why advice is bad. So then how do we actually combat this? Well, the main way of combating this is to realize that it's all coming from a place of scarcity, a place of fear, a place of neediness. So then, as soon as you realize that, you can kind of combat that, and this does take time. I've been slowly getting rid of this from myself using the framework that I will outline to you now. So I have a criteria of 4 times when you're allowed to give advice, and these are the only times when you are actually allowed to give advice outside of it being asked of you. So number 1 is things that actually affect you. You're allowed to give advice when the person that's doing something, that thing will affect you. So for instance, if you're talking to your business partner and they want to make some sort of business decision, say in their other business, but that might jeopardize the business that you have with them, and therefore it might actually affect you, then you're allowed to give advice because it will directly correlate to you. The second time is when you're asking people to like and subscribe to your YouTube channel, because guys, if you find this valuable, I really would appreciate at least a like, maybe a subscribe, and if you really feel like it, you can comment down below saying what you liked, what you don't like. I really appreciate thoughtful feedback, and you are allowed to give me advice on what I should or shouldn't do better. I am giving you permission. The third reason is if someone is super down or they're depressed and they're about to make some decisions that could potentially be life-changing or even life-ending. In those cases, yes, please give advice because they're your friends and they really appreciate it. I know when I was pretty down, people gave me some advice, so I found that really helpful, and I wasn't about to go out and ask for advice. And most people that are super down are not actually going to seek advice because they're super down. So in that case, go ahead, ask them if they need some advice, and maybe offer them a tip or two. And the fourth way is if someone is complaining. Because if you're complaining, then you should just be going out and solving your problems or not complaining about it. Now, if it's just 1 or 2 times, that's fine. Sometimes people just need to vent, and in that case, don't give them advice. But if they've done it, 4, 5, 6 times, and it's about the exact same thing over and over and over again, then maybe offer them advice, but offer them advice in a sort of open-ended way. So ask them specifically if they need advice for this, because tell them, you're concerned about them and all that, and then, only then, when they agree to take your advice, should you actually give them the advice, because ultimately, complaining isn't very useful and you might as well just take some action, but sometimes it just takes a little bit of a kick in the butt. I know I used to be a huge complainer and people would get a little bit annoyed about me, so people started giving me advice as to how to actually solve my problems, and that kicked my butt into gear, and then I stopped complaining, and now I have this philosophy, which is likely a video that I will be making in the future. So guys, there you have it. That is my little algorithm for when to give advice, and more importantly, when not to give advice. I hope you found it helpful. Again, if you liked it, please like and comment and subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next one.